Hello and welcome back to Oh So Retro, and to something that isn't actually that retro, or at least not by my definition anyway, and that's this fairly generic and normal looking Asus laptop from around 2007. This is the Asus W5fe. Now you might be wondering why I'm even bothering to cover something that looks just like another generic or clone laptop from the mid-2000s. Well, the 15th anniversary of Windows Vista is rapidly approaching, so I thought I would commemorate that by looking at one of its most unique and interesting features, which this Asus laptop is intricately associated with. But we'll get to that in a bit. But before that, let's take a bit of a closer look at some of this laptop's quirks and features. Oh wait, no, I can't use that. That's copyrighted to a certain Mr. DeMuro. Idiosyncrasies and attributes. Yes, that should do. We're going to look at its idiosyncrasies and attributes, and then we're going to boot it up for the first time and play around with it a bit. I haven't actually switched this machine on yet, but I've been assured that it is working, so we'll see what happens. Right, so on the surface, this does actually look like a fairly generic laptop. Once again, it's got a 12-inch monitor that can do 1280 by 800 resolution. It's nothing amazing, but it was pretty good, I think, for a laptop of this era. There is one slightly interesting thing about this screen, and that is these three buttons on the side of it. This is a record button, it looks like, so I presume you can use this to record off your webcam. It's the up and down volume button here, so that's pretty self-explanatory, obviously. Make things louder or softer, yay. And there's also the microphone mute button, I presume, here. So if you don't want people to hear all the nonsense that's going on in the background, you can push that while on a web call. This is fairly interesting, actually. I've never seen these buttons on the side of a laptop screen before. So this certainly is an interesting little quirk that this laptop has. And speaking of the webcam, this laptop has another interesting feature up its sleeve, and that is this rotating webcam. Now, you can actually move this thing around so that it faces backwards. I can't really imagine why you might want to do that, but if you want to record something on the other side of your screen, then this is very easy to do it with this webcam. You can also then just rotate it back when you want to use it as a normal webcam again. So yeah, that's also pretty neat and nifty. I've never seen anything like this on another laptop before. A rotating 235 degree, apparently. 235 degree, here we are, rotating camera. Very cool. In terms of specifications, this laptop is actually also pretty impressive. It's got a Core 2 Duo T7200 CPU running at 2 GHz. It's got 1.5 gigabytes of RAM, which is very funky. And it says that it's got a 160 gigabyte hard drive, but we'll come back to that in a bit because that's actually been upgraded slightly. In terms of graphics, that's where it kind of lets the side down a bit, unfortunately, having a Intel GMA 950 onboard graphics chip. This certainly won't play very many games, but then again, that's not really what it was designed for. This is meant to be a work PC through and through, so having an onboard Intel graphics card that can't really do 3D graphics, it's not really the end of the world. Looking around the side, we see that this laptop also has a wide array of connectivity I can't use the word features, can I? Connectivity attributes, such as USB, obviously, Firewire, Ethernet, what looks like a modem, although I didn't see any mention of a modem in other reviews of this laptop, so I'm not entirely sure about that. But interestingly, this laptop has got a full-size optical drive, and this is a dual-layer DVD writer. So that's actually pretty impressive for a laptop this small, at least. It's got an SD card reader, that's also very handy. You can do SD, MMC, MS Pro, whatever, blah blah blah, all that awesome stuff. So that's really cool. Looking around the other side, we see that the peculiarities and attributes continue. We've got a volume control knob, which is really cool for controlling your volume, obviously. A express card slot, don't know anything about that. A microphone and earphone jack, another USB, and a VGA out, which is really cool. So you can connect another monitor to this machine if you really wanted to, which is handy. So this laptop is pretty feature-packed, but again, there's nothing really odd about it, yet. But that changes the moment that you close the lid. Well, would you look at that? This laptop has two screens. Okay, so it's not actually that big of a screen. It's only about 2.5 inches, I think, and it does kind of look like an afterthought, the way that it's been molded into the lid of the laptop and the way that it sort of sits proud of the rest of the lid with this big bulge. It almost looks as though this is a mod that someone has done, but this is actually how the laptop came from the factory. So yeah, 2 screens on 1 laptop. How cool is that? Okay, so what's the story here then? Well, this is actually a Windows Sideshow display. Sideshow was a pretty interesting yet long forgotten feature of Windows Vista that allowed machines running Vista to send information to other peripheral devices or displays that could also be used independently of the host machine. So in other words, even if the laptop is off and closed, you can still do stuff on your computer. What kind of stuff? Well, we'll check that out later. But the idea was basically that you didn't necessarily need to start your machine up every time you wanted to perform certain tasks, which theoretically saved power and was faster and more convenient than opening up and booting the machine. There were also other plans for Sideshow, like using a display in place of the LEDs in front of a laptop to display information, or controlling a media center PC remotely with a Sideshow device. Or even a digital photo frame. Remember those? Oh, I remember. There were even some more radical ideas out there, like this prototype bag from Elixon, yeah, let's go with that had a Sideshow display built into the fabric so you could check your mail or whatever without having to take the laptop out of the bag. It may be totally silly and impractical, but the nerd in me still kind of just really loves this idea. So yeah, there were definitely big plans for Sideshow when it was unveiled at CES in 2007. And while there were a few other laptops that also did a very similar thing from the likes of LG and HP, this Asus was very much the poster child for the Sideshow functionality at that time.
I'm Dan Ackman here at CES 2007. This is a laptop. It is the Asus W5fe. Now, this is a Windows Vista laptop, but what is different, Michelle, about this particular Windows Vista laptop?
Well, this takes advantage of the feature in Windows Vista called Sideshow, and what that means is that in addition to being a simple laptop, there is a separate device built into the lid here that you can use to access your media files and your email without booting the laptop.
So yeah, the basic idea then is that the Sideshow devices are secondary devices which are connected to the host PC and which can share data. They could either be built in, as is the case with this Asus here, or entirely separate like those other examples. They were also intended to be customizable, allowing the user to install multiple little applets or gadgets on the device, technically allowing them to do however many different tasks they wanted. Unfortunately, this idea never really took off, and very few extra gadgets were ever created for this or any other Sideshow device. In fact, I really wasn't able to find any other gadgets while researching this video, so it seems that nobody was really interested in doing anything with this technology, which is a bit of a pity. Anyway, let's get this machine booted up and see how this whole Sideshow thing actually works. Now, I don't exactly have the best memories of Windows Vista, like quite a few other people out there, I think. It just wasn't very, what's the word, good. Ooh, this is not good either. Let's go start Windows normally. Yes, but I basically remember trying out Windows Vista for a couple of months before going back to XP, but it did pave the way for Windows 7 at least, which was a much better operating system in my opinion, and one that I'm still using to this day, so at least that was something. And there we are, the familiar boot up sounds of Windows Vista. Alright, so let's zoom in a bit here and take a look at how the Sideshow functionality actually works. So we go to our control panel, and you'll see that there's a new option here, basically Windows Sideshow. If we click on this, we now get our gadgets that we can add to our Windows Sideshow compatible devices. So in this particular case, I've only got 2 extra gadgets, unfortunately. Windows Inbox Mail, well, sorry, not Windows, Inbox for Windows Mail, and Windows Media Player. So we can enable those if we choose to, or turn them off. So in terms of the actual Sideshow device, it is listed on the left here under devices, so we can go ahead and click on that, And there you see that there are a few options here that you can change. The first is the theme. We've got two themes, basically a blue one and a dark grey one, obviously. So the blue one, if we change that and click apply, and then look at our Sideshow device, we can see that it's gone to teal or blue. If we go back here and change it to graphite and click apply or OK, then it changes to this quite nice dark grey color. So there is actually some customization that you can do with the Sideshow display, at least on this particular laptop, which is quite nice. There's also an option to change the order here in which the gadgets appear. I've only got two, so I can't do too much with them, but if you wanted to move them around, then you can do so from the screen, so that's quite useful if you had a lot of gadgets. Unfortunately, a lot of gadgets were never really created, so that isn't very useful today, but the idea was sound. And then you can of course get more gadgets online, which was kind of the idea with this, that there'd be many gadgets being developed, and then people would just be able to go online basically and download as many as they wanted. But unfortunately that never happened, so this is also slightly useless. But let's get out of here now and go and have a look at how we move files onto the Sideshow device. So to do this, we first have to put the device into media sync mode. Once we do that, we see that it appears as what looks like a mobile phone on this little picture, but it's actually basically an external hard drive or an external flash drive. So now we can use this as if it was any other external drive. So let's go ahead and open this up, and we see there's a temp folder here, and there's already some music files in here. But if we wanted to, we could also go and find some sample pictures, say, that came with Windows Vista, and move these across into the little player. There was a warning label there about compatibility. I'm not too sure what that meant, but we'll try it out. I'm sure it'll be fine. Okay, so now we're going to go out of media sync mode, and maybe, let's see, go back here. Okay, so now that we've copied those files across, we can go and view them in the Sideshow player, and there they are, all three of them in the image library, and we can click on it and hopefully it opens. There we are, trees, amazing. So yeah, despite those warnings, it did actually work. You can move files across, move images across, and look at them on your screen. It could maybe be useful for looking at your photos or something like that for your latest holiday, annoying your friends, that kind of thing. What else have we got here? So yeah, we've got email as well, which I installed. Well, I made the app available, so you can go into your Windows mail inbox here, and I've only got one mail, of course, the one that comes with it, but here we go. You can read your Windows mail on your Sideshow device, and it's pretty useful, I guess. One potential use case for this is if you're at a strange place and you're having a meeting somewhere or whatever that you don't know, you can't remember where you're supposed to be for your meeting, then you can open the email on your inbox here and then remind yourself where you're supposed to be without having to start the whole machine up. One massive downside of this, at least in my opinion, is that this thing will not receive new mails. This Sideshow device will not be able to receive new mails when the PC is off. You have to turn the PC on to sync with the inbox in order to get your new messages, which is kind of a problem, I think. It kind of reduces its usefulness a lot, because it would be great if you didn't have to start your laptop up to read your new mails as they came in, but that's not going to happen with this. That's not how this works. It's not what it does. So you can only read messages that are already synced with the device. So only things that you have already received, in other words, when the machine was on. And that's a little bit of a downside. I think it's a bit of a disappointment, frankly. You still have to start your computer up and to receive new mails, and then turn it off again, and then you can read them on the Sideshow display, if that makes sense. It's a bit weird. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way that it is. It isn't a smartphone, of course. Smartphones kind of hadn't been invented yet when this PC was being sold. So yeah, anyway, so yeah, we've got our music, we've got our PC status, we can check a couple of things here, nothing incredibly useful, just how much battery you've got. You can view your images, you can play solitaire as we saw earlier, but yeah, so Sideshow, that's what it is, right there, little applets that you can play on your Sideshow screen on the back of your laptop. Pretty cool, pretty cool. So I mentioned earlier that the hard drive in this laptop had been upgraded, and that is indeed the case. This has now got a 250 gig SSD in it, a modern SSD. The RAM has also been upgraded to 2.5 gigabytes. And that, combined with the SSD, means that this machine shuts down and boots up in slightly less time than it did back in 2007. In fact, these upgrades potentially make the Sideshow display completely obsolete because it takes almost as much time to boot the Sideshow display as it does to just start up the machine. But let's just test that out, shall we? So I'm going to put the computer to sleep, and now I'm going to wake it up and see how long it takes. Oh, would you look at that. 5 seconds. 6 seconds, let's be a bit ungenerous there. 6 seconds from asleep until perfectly awake and ready to go. And actually, if I'm on the ball, I can get it down to a lot less than that. 3 seconds, 4 seconds, there we go. 4 seconds to boot into Windows, or to wake up from sleep into Windows. So now let's give that little Sideshow display a test and see how fast that boots up. Right, let's do the same test with the Sideshow display. I'm going to do this at exactly the same time, hopefully. There we go, starting up. Oh dear. Wait for it. Wait, there we go. 20 seconds, more or less. I didn't stop it there, but it basically was pretty much open and running around 20 seconds. So yeah, a modern SSD and an extra gigabyte of RAM means that this Sideshow display is not quite as useful as it was back in 2007. Still, we can't really hold that against it, I suppose. SSDs didn't exist back then. So let's try a test that's perhaps a little bit more fair. I've switched the computer off and I'm going to boot it from cold, as it were, and see how long that takes. Getting there, wait for it. And there we are, pretty much into Windows now, up to 35, 36, whatever seconds. So yeah, in that particular case, the Sideshow display is potentially still useful. So if you've switched your computer completely off and you want to read your mail, it is still quicker, I guess, to boot up the Sideshow display than it is to restart the computer. But I don't think most people would do that. You'd probably just put your computer to sleep if you had any intention of actually switching it on again later. So that's the Asus W5fe. It really was a pretty decently spec'd, well-equipped and very well-built laptop for its day. Although at $2,000 I suppose it had better have been. That wasn't exactly cheap back then. But for your money you got a pretty handsome, high-quality machine that was certainly no slouch when it came to performance. Except of course if you were trying to play games. But obviously that wasn't what this laptop was meant for. Its whole reason for being was a showcase of the Windows Sideshow technology. And Sideshow definitely was a very interesting technology, which unfortunately was never really adopted or explored by anyone. Which is a pity really, because in my opinion it was by far the most interesting new feature in Windows Vista. And there could have been some really cool stuff created using Sideshow had it taken off. Instead, it was doomed to be a technological dead end, which never really gained any traction amongst users or developers alike, due to its high cost, limited functionality, and lack of interest from OEMs. Sideshow was quietly killed off with the release of Windows 8 in 2013, and hardly anyone even noticed, which is a bit sad. But I'm glad we still have laptops like this Asus here to remind us of these crazy technological gambles that, though they may not have paid off at the time, helped us to get to where we are today. Anyway, that's pretty much going to be it for this video, everyone. Thanks so much for watching, I really do appreciate it. Please be sure to like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. But until next time, cheers guys. So that's the Asus W5fe. It really was a pretty decently spec'd, well equipped and very well built laptop for its day. Although at $2,000 I suppose it had better have been. That wasn't exactly cheap back then. But for your money you got a pretty handsome high quality machine that was certainly no slouch when it came to performance. Except of course if you were trying to play games. But obviously that wasn't what this laptop was meant for. Its raison d'etre God. Its whole reason for being was a showcase of the Windows Sideshow technology. And Sideshow definitely was a very interesting technology